February 23, 2023. This is the 2000 tick chart on the S&P 500 E-mini futures on the Thinkorswim platform. I only took one trade today. I wasn't quite feeling mentally right, so I knew to step back and not take too many trades or try to be too ambitious because my judgment would likely have been off. So this is what the chart looked like today. You can go to the bottom in the descriptions and you can see where all the points of interest and where I took my trade. So this is what the chart looked like today. In the pre-market, it kind of rallied up. There really was no catalyst of any kind today, worth mentioning. And then it kind of did a V recovery. It sold off and then it almost took back the entire move, kind of right around midday. And then it kind of sold off again at the low. So this is what my chart looked like. I'll go through all the points of interest. This is my one and only trade down here, and I'll just kind of get into it now. So hopefully I'll try to make this video not too long. This is a pre-market. In the pre-market, I already drew this trend line just to see where prices were going to be, and I just thought there's potential that today could be just a trading range day, but there's also this very slight uptrend. I also drew this, and this is the first trade that I saw. Well, actually not really a trade, it's just the first setup I saw. The second entry long, because you have a view high here, first entry long right here, and then a second entry long as soon as it broke above this candle. Now, I thought the signal bar was kind of neutral, even though it's bearish. And although it closed above the EMA, I felt it was too risky. It's also early in the day, so I just decided to leave it alone. And there was no real rush to take a trade, especially today when I wasn't quite feeling all there, which was always a good decision. If you're not feeling quite right, you didn't sleep well, you're having outside trading issues like with life or mentally or just anything, just know and recognize that and just be careful on those days. Perhaps you don't even trade that day. So that's kind of what I decided to do, and just sat on my hands most of the day, but I did mark up the charts just because it's a good habit to keep up and I just want to sharpen my trading skills. So prices continue moving down. It goes below the EMA. I draw this trend channel now, and I also had this one at the time. I don't see any good clean trades. Prices chopped around, and right here we get to this guy. So right here I see a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Now keep in mind, this is the trend line that I have that I drew in the pre-market, and it is kind of touching the top and coming back down. So when I see that, I thought, okay, it's the top of the trend channel. It's a good signal bar. Let me just get it zoomed in. Top of the trend channel is good signal bar. There's enough room to the EMA. If it had closed red instead of green, I think I probably would have just jumped on it for sure. But it's also going counter trend because it's touching the top. And so the chances of it coming back down are a lot higher. So I just, for whatever reason, didn't feel quite ready to jump on this trade. Now, if it had been like a red candle, I think I would have been for sure on this trade. But I kind of left that one alone. Prices continue moving, and this sets up this guy now. So if you count this as new high, there's a first entry long right here, and then a second entry long. Now this one is also where I established that there's a potential trading range right here, but I wasn't 100% sure that this is actually a true trading range yet. Now the signal bar is green, but it's also neutral. So it closed above the EMA, but I'm not sure at this point if it's really truly at the bottom of this trading range. And later I would know that it is a trading range, but at the time I didn't know. If this bar had actually had no stem up here, it just kind of came up and closed here, I might have potentially taken the trade. But what it's telling me is when this bar opened down here, it moved up, moved down, or moved down and moved up, whatever it did, it came back and it kind of closed right here. So it's telling me there's indecision. So it could have easily just kept going down. So I don't know at the time, and I just didn't feel that that signal bar was good enough. Now, when this guy formed, it kind of bounced off, and when I decided not to take the trade, it's already too late to try to take an entry because you're already getting close to the top. So kind of reinforces that, okay, well, I missed the trade. That's okay. Just wait for another setup. Prices chopped around, and now for sure, I'm very certain there's a trading range here. Of course, you don't know at the time back here, but if something like this sets up further down, then I would have been ready to take that trade. It kind of does here. You could say there's a new high, first entry long, second entry long, but this is a bad signal bar. So then I do see this. I see a new low here, potentially, because it's at the low I mean, you can say this is a really new low, but it came up, came down, this is making a new low here. First entry short, there's a second entry short here, it ticked one tick below. So it's a second entry short, it's a counter trend trade. Now, I didn't really like this. I thought it was kind of aggressive if I took this trade because even though the signal bar is green right here, it's a pretty bullish green bar. In other words, it closed up here. If it had been like red, I'd been more inclined to take the trade. Also right here, it looks like it's pretty congested. So I don't know if I would have taken this trade right off of this guy, one tick below. Most likely I would have probably just waited because it didn't close below. When this guy closed, now to take a trade right down here after it closes, because it closed here, you either have to put your entry back here or one tick below here. And it feels like it already moved too far, broke out. It could be a failed breakout. Overall trend is going bullish, so it could break out and pull right back in. So certainly not a trade I thought was worth risking on. Turns out it would have worked, but it's hard to know at the time because you're technically, even though it broke below, you're going to counter trend because you're going to counter trend trade thinking it's going to go down further, whereas most breakouts of this trading range are going to fail, go right back in. But you don't know at the time, so certainly I wouldn't beat myself up for not taking that trade. It just wasn't quite high probability enough. Prices continue moving down. It's entering another trading range that I kind of drew here. Breaks out a little bit, slight overshoot. Now, I saw a pretty decent setup here. So it's like a new low here, lower than this guy. Comes up, it's a first entry short. I'm getting ready to see if there's a second entry short because it also went out of this trading range and came back in. It's also broke below the EMA. So I like this setup, and I didn't take it though. But if I did, it would have been one tick below, and it would have been enough to either get your scalp out, and then you see if you can get a runner. But right here, depending on where your stop is, your runner probably would have gotten the stopped out break even. But there's enough room here to just get your scalp. Prices continue moving down. It's respecting this trading range right now. Now I'm wondering if it's going to break back into this guy, right? Because I do see potentially a new low here because it went up. There's it making a little bit higher, but then there's a new low. Their first entry short. Let me zoom in. Your first entry short here comes up. It's potentially going to make another second entry short. Now, it broke out of this trading range that I have. Now, you could certainly move this trading range up at the time. I didn't. I could have moved it up to here and said it has a breakout failure. But I kept it down here. Now, I'm watching if there's going to form a second entry short, but the EMA is coming right up against it. So, although it's kind of setting up, looking like it might happen, I didn't like that this next candle that it broke below is a doji. So this is officially now a second entry short because it starts from here, first entry short, second entry short. However, this second entry short, there's a lot of indecision right on this candle. It's telling you something. It's saying like the bulls and bears are kind of trying to figure out whether this trend range is going to be respected, it's going to get pulled back in, or potentially it's going to pull back into this bigger trend channel and make a new high. Because this one broke out, it needs to go back and make a new high. So on that candle, it's indecision. I don't really like it. I didn't want to take that trade. And because if you went, I wouldn't blame you if you decided to go long because you think it's going to come back in here. And I wouldn't blame you if you decided to take a short. And it turns out it would have worked on the short side. But it's a little bit kind of a competing narrative. So it's something I just wanted to avoid. Prices move down, has an overshoot here and overshoots down here and is pulling right back in. Now this is kind of where it gets a little bit interesting. So I see like there's a second entry long here because if you count this as a new high, the first entry long, second entry long, it does stay above the EMA. I don't like the way that this candle closed though. So this signal bar isn't very encouraging. It stayed above the EMA, but it broke and closed below. If it stayed and closed above, then this candle would have been more reassuring. And this signal bar would have been something that you could have watched and probably take a trade off of. Since the signal bar was, well, pretty poor, I just needed something more confident to take a trade. So I let that one go. But immediately you see a second entry short potentially setting up because you have a first entry long, second entry long. You might have a failed second entry long, which you do because you're going to see in a little bit. But at the time I'm watching this very closely, it creates another doji candle. You're seeing a bunch of these little single, really tight doji candles. You're seeing it again here. You see a new low, first entry short. Now here I'm watching if there's going to be a potential second entry short. It creates a second entry short. So it could have trapped some bulls that decided to go long one up here, because if you entered right one tick above, you would have got filled, immediately reversed on you, and then back down. Knowing that it's a second entry short, also knowing that the overall bias at the moment is in this trading range, there's no real trade for me to try to take a low here, because it just seems like it'd be pretty risky. And let's just go ahead and zoom in again. The signal bar is very neutral. It's hard to know. It didn't close above. It closed above the EMA, and now it's trying to go back down. So it could be a double trap. Something it's just too much noise right there. I didn't want to try taking a risk. And then prices continue to move. Breaks down below the trading range. Kind of keeps going down. So at this point, I'm watching this and I'm seeing like all these markups that I think I found. And I'm trying to question myself, like, I see all these potential setups. I need to be careful because I'm starting to see a lot of setups and might not be high probability. So I could easily get reeled in and start taking haphazard trades. So I kind of sat on my hands, told myself, just really, really wait, just kind of mark out good trades and don't just mark out a trade just because there is a second entry, because second entries are all over the place. Prices continue moving up, comes back down. And now I see a potential failed breakout because I have this trading range. I see a potential failed breakout comes out, but it closed pretty bearish. It closed bullish, so it kind of confirmed it was a failed breakout. Went back in, but this candle is telling me it's a kind of a bearish bull candle. Even though it closed green, it's kind of bearish. And then it continued going back down low. Now you could have said this is like a new high, first entry long, second entry long, but to take a second entry long off of this terrible signal bar is high risk. So I'm glad I didn't take that trade and just kind of let it go. Also, it's counter trend because right now the trend is indicating that it's going down. So it'd be almost like you're trying to pick the bottom, because at this point in time, this is kind of the bottom. I mean, there is the pre-market bottom here. So it's making a new bottom. It's kind of triple testing down here, but you don't know at the time. And to try to buy here, I felt was risky, especially on this very not encouraging signal bar. Lo and behold, it kind of crashes down some more. And then I see a potential trade right here, because I see this count as one count, because you could count this together as one grouping, one leg down, first entry long, second leg down. It's almost a measured move, but it's two clear, distinct legs moving down, and it comes right back up. So it's like a potential second entry long here, comes up. Now it's touching this. Now I'm wondering, is there going to be still respecting this trading range? Is it going to be a breakout pullback and also a potential second entry long failure? It turns out it is going to be, it doesn't fail right here because it goes up. So right now you're watching carefully and seeing the EMA. When it breaks down below, I think there could have been a trade here, but you're also at the low. So it would have been a little aggressive, but you're also taking a failed first entry long off this support, off this EMA, and also breaking pullback breakout, breakout pullback. So it would resume, but I'm a little, just watching it, a little sketched out. There's enough room to get your scalp, but it is a little bit more aggressive in my opinion. Prices continue moving down. And I'm just watching carefully. Then it goes into another trading range. Right now, the EMA is holding prices down. It's a little consolidation area, no good setups. And now I try to take an entry here because it's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Now, when I saw this, I saw, okay, look, there's a second entry short. This EMA has rejected so many times now. I also draw this trend line. When this guy formed, I kind of drew, and then when this guy formed, I kind of had a little bit more confirmation. And then when this guy came around, I said, it's a pretty close enough touch. I wanted to not take my entry down here, though, because it's getting close to the lows here. I wanted to actually take a little bit of risk off the table. So I wanted my trade to be actually a little bit higher. So after this trigger bar closed, I said, I'm going to put one tick below the signal bar, which is the screen bar, one tick below here. And I hope prices come back, fill me, and then continue down. Turns out the price never comes back for me. Now, I could have been aggressive and put it one tick below here, and I would have gotten this trade. But then you're changing the risk reward profile because now from here, you're thinking it's going to come down to here, maybe break lower, or it could bounce. So looking at this much room versus a little bit more, I wanted to have that little bit more reassurance. So I had my trade up here. I didn't get filled. I thought it was a good setup. I hoped it would have came back, but see this candle and then this candle, and it just kind of proceeded down without me. So that was kind of a missed opportunity. I'm okay with that just because I followed the rules and I'm not trying to be overreaching. Just kind of, if the rules say try to do this, then do that. I mean, granted, if I see this more often, I get a better feel for it. I might be more inclined to actually put it one tick below. Prices continue moving down. Makes a new low. It turns out to be the lowest low of the day. Comes up and I see a second entry short here. So it's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Now I see the second entry short and I think, okay, if it closed below the EMA, I'd be more ready to take it, but it closed above the EMA and it already had 3 bullish candles up. So I'm thinking, okay, well, it's 3 bullish candles up, it closed above the EMA. I'm not ready to take this trade because, well, it technically hasn't made a second entry short yet. It does. So when I'm waiting and I watch this tick one below, I'm watching very carefully. It touches the EMA and bounces right back up. And I thought, okay, well, maybe there's going to be a trade and I'll wait till it closes. It closes right here. I was like, okay, maybe I won't take this trade. There's no short there. Turns out I think it would have worked. You would have got scalped out just barely, but it felt a little aggressive to take that kind of trade. Then I see a second entry long here because you have a new high. It's kind of hidden though, because you go first entry long, comes down second entry long. And this is a pretty decent candle. I had this trading range drawn at this point, and I created another double one up here a little bit later. And you see that, okay, this is a pretty decent bar, but right now the EMA isn't really telling me it's strong enough to keep it up or keep the prices down, because right here it was pushing prices down, and now it looks like it's kind of supporting, then it rejected, kind of supporting. So this is a little bit questionable. It's kind of an iffy trade. I thought, okay, well, it's in a trading range. It's a good signal bar, closed above the EMA, but it's counter trend to the overall bearish downtrend. So I'm not sure if it's going to make 2 attempts to go out, because it broke out here. So it made 1 attempt to go up. This could be technically a second attempt. So to ask for a third attempt, I wasn't sure. So I said, I better just, I'm not sure, so I'm just going to sit on my hands. Prices continue moving up. Chops around. I see a second entry long here. I didn't take this trade just because I wasn't mentally prepared, but it was a new high, first entry long. Second entry long, this is a pretty good candle. It closed really far from the EMA though, and right now trend is kind of, looks like it's kind of going back and reversing, because I do draw this trend channel, just kind of linked up. It was a little bit tighter and aggressive. I think cut up through a little bit higher, but at the time I saw it, I didn't take the trade, and it ends up would have worked out. Then I see a second entry long, excuse me, a failed second entry long, because you see a first entry long, second entry long, and now it's closed below the EMA. So I'm just watching. Turns out it would have failed. That's why it's a failed second entry long. Of course, I don't know at the time. I'm just kind of watching carefully, and definitely it just kind of popped like that. Excuse me. But when it came up and made a lower high, first entry long, second entry long, lower high, I said, okay, I think this is going to potentially move back down, at least to this trading range. So I don't take the entry yet. I wanted to make sure it kind of breaks below this candle, so I don't take it on this candle either. And finally, I take it on this candle, but as soon as it broke below, I entered and it came right back up and closed. But my stop was 1 tick above this guy. And so now I'm kind of wondering, I probably entered a little bit too early, because look at this congestion. I just barely survived because it didn't quite go up and hit my 1 tick stop, and finally comes back down. And in hindsight, this trade was too congested. I get my profit out here and it stops out my runner. So because I entered a little bit late, I was able to get out before it stopped me out. And I was just going for a 1 point profit, and I was able to get it. But in hindsight, this is kind of congested. Not the best entry. Certainly should have just kind of let that one go. And as you can see, it's already been a few hours. And I haven't really taken any trades. I marked some up. I didn't get filled on one right there. So I decided, you know what? I don't think it's my day. I knew waking up today I wasn't quite there. So I decided to just sit on my hands and mark up the rest of the chart. And I'll just go through them pretty quickly. So it's starting to reverse now. I see the second entry long here, first entry long, second entry long. This is actually a pretty decent, I think, a pretty decent possible trade. It's like a signal bar, even though it is neutral, it closed above the EMA and the trend is clearly going bullish now. It also bounced off this trading range because I drew this trading range, but I saw a second potential trading range up here. It's kind of bouncing off this second consolidated trading range. So whether you call this a key entry point or not, at least there's one here and it's going with trend. So that might have been worth a trade to take. Turns out it would have worked. Prices continue up, and now I'm pretty confident that this trend channel is legitimate, even though there's a small overshoot. It's coming up, and I see a second entry long here. It's a new high, first entry long, second entry long. I don't know I would have taken this one, though. This one is more iffy, because this one had a reasonably good signal bar to the screen. This one is a little bit more questionable, because if the signal bar had actually closed bullish, because it opened here and closed here, if it actually closed above or at least tighter, I would have considered a trade, especially when this one opened down here and never came back. This, I think, happened pretty quickly. So if only I would be more prepared if this signal bar was actually more green or looked better. So turns out the trade would have worked, but of course you don't know that at the time. Prices continue moving up, breaks out of that channel. So now I'm seeing, okay, well, it's already reclaimed 50% of the move from here to here. It's already reclaimed 50%. It's not a correction. It's a full-on reversal. It's coming right back up now. I mean, it could still come back down to the lows, but more likely it's being bullish because it had this trend channel moving up, and now I created a new trend channel, which I drew here. So here I'm just looking for longs, and prices continue moving up. I don't see any very good setups. Goes into this trading range, which I drew. And here I see a new high. Let me zoom in real quick. See a new high, first entry long, second entry long. This is a pretty decent signal bar, even though it's kind of neutral. I also have this trading range established. So I'm thinking, okay, it could be a second entry long with a failed breakout, bouncing off the EMA. Might be worth a try because it probably wants to make a new extreme of this guy. So that new extreme. So made one push up, and now it's looking for a second leg up to at least test this high. So I thought, okay, from here to here, there's a couple points there, at least enough for a scalp. Considering the bullish trend, it probably would have worked, and I find out it does work. Now, if I kept my stop down here and I was going for a little bit more than just 1 or 2 points, my stop would have been here. I would have had to sweat out this move down, and right here would have flashed and hit me. So kind of a good to know that, you know, if you try to reach a little bit more than your profit target, you got to be aware of where you are in the overall scheme of things, because this is already pushing for a new high in this current time frame. So asking for a little bit more is a little risky, because if you're down here, you can certainly ask, because you know there's kind of a reversal detected early, you can ask for a little more points to try to get a profit. But you're already up here asking for more than, you know, if you're too ambitious, right here, you would have just been stopped out, unless you kept your stop way down here, but that changes your whole risk reward. So then prices just continue chopping around, keeps moving up. I don't take any trades for the rest of the day. I do see a final setup right here, but it's too late in the day because I made a new low, first entry short, second entry short. I like this setup, but it's too late in the day. There's only 5 minutes left. So to take this trade is risky. I don't want to be trying to manage it with only 5 minutes left. But this is a pretty nice setup because it's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. There's a good signal bar. There's a good trigger bar. On top of that, it's already showing it's bearish coming back down because it broke out of this trading range, tried to make one high here and a second high, and it didn't work out. So now it's just kind of proceeding down. So that trade, had it happened earlier in the day, I think I would have taken it. So that's how I saw the charts today. A pretty quiet day for me. It's probably better that way. I think I might have just been frustrated and maybe jumping on things I saw that weren't there. So hopefully that was helpful.